But today's session is all about looking at how Sage X3 can manage the cache forecast. So before I go into the system, it's important that every business generates enough cash so that they can take care of everyday needs and as well to avoid any debt. That is by reducing and eliminating any surprises when it comes to cash requirements. So without further ado, I'm just going to go straight into the system and we're going to look at how Sage X3 can manage the cache component. So this is how the structure of the presentation is going to be. We're going to look at our cache focus types. We're going to look at the parameters. These two are important before we start seeing how the system can handle the cache flow or the cache forecast. Then we'll also look at the banking position as well as being able to export that the results into Excel. Okay, so when it comes to cache management or cache forecast, there are important parameters that you must set up from a Sage X3, and that is going into your accounts receivable payables, TRS. This can be done at the folder legislation, but to be practical, we're going to be doing it at the company level. And this is under the cache management. And then we go into detail. So here we've got three specific parameters that we need to set up. You need to have your default bank for the company. We also need to manage the payment statistics. So this is the average time a customer pays. So if you'd like to include it, for instance, if we have, if we take into account, for instance, if we put 50 there, it means that we're going to include all the payments that took place in the last 50 days. But if we leave it at 0, we're just going to leave it open to all the payments. Same applies to the percentage for sales quotes. When we are capturing our sales quotations, there is a field that the probability field. So in that probability field, if we specify the percentage of or the probability that that quotation is going to be converted into a sale, and if we come on to this parameter and we specify, in this instance, we've got 50. So it means that when we run the cache forecast, it's only going to consider those that are 50% and above. So anything that is below is going to be ignored. So having said that, we're now going to go into the forecast types. It's also important that we set this at a company level. Here we can specify what type of focus we would like to include. So the system allows us to make use of purchase request, purchase contract, which are your open orders, purchase orders, receipt notes, quotations, sales orders, sales contracts, which are your open orders, CRM contracts, that is within the Sage X3, the leasing, and it also allows to have the user type. So anything that does not apply to from 1 to 10, you will then be able to use it in your focus. And then you can also specify in terms of the percentage on a daily basis that you would like to be included. And then when it comes to analysis period, it has to add up, it will be at 100%. So again, this is not cast in stone. You can play with it as you want, and the system can then start generating those forecasts that you want. So having set up the two, which is the parameters and the focus, we start off by looking at the focus. As I've mentioned, from a finance, we have open items. We also look at the lease contracts. From a purchasing, we have the purchase requisition. Some companies would say they're not really interested on requisition. They want to start off from orders. So on that screen that you saw on the focus types, you can then go there and you turn off what you do not want to utilize. Same applies to the sell side. So this will have an impact on the inflow and the outflow of the funds in the business. So the next step in the process is to generate the forecast. So when you click on generate, based on what you have turned on the types, they will be available on this particular screen. Just to make it more exciting, we're going to use the end of the year, which is the 31st of December. And we're going to include the purchase request, the purchase orders, open orders, receipts, quotations, and so on. And I'm also going to click on the traceability detail. And once we click on OK, the system is then going to look into the existing purchase request, the orders, the open orders, receipts, to also look at the sales quotations. Please note that I have two quotations, but currently only one is being displayed because of the parameter that I've specified that I only want quotations that are on 50% and above. So if you go back and you change that parameter, it's also going to have an effect on what is going to be delivered. On the lease contracts, you can also see that I have some data that is in there. And then on the last page, it shows us the total of the open items, as well as the expense that we have. So when we did the generation here, we're only looking at what the system can provide us. But there are some other elements that you can also generate. So this is where we now go into the management of the forecast. And taking into account the company that I'm working on. So looking from the top, we can see the requests, the quotations, and then we have two user types. So this you can go in and you can include. For instance, here I've got a quarterly bonus that I would like to be part of the forecast. And if I look at, I want the accounting date to be the 25th of May, and it must be due on the 26th of, on the 24th of June. So this is when it's all going to happen. And then if we look at another type, we have where we can also plan for payments. In this case, we can also make use of the weekly. So this could be a payroll that we want to include. It could be a fortnightly payout. So here we can also include the frequency. So we're saying weekly, so it's a fortnight. Then below, we can then specify in terms of what the amounts that we're going to be paying out. Now, if you take a look here, this is 150. That's the total that we're going to be dispersing. And then if we look on the second week, it's going to be also 150. So this information then becomes part and parcel of the forecast when we generate the forecast. This will be included as the manual forecast. After we do that, we now go on to the situation. So when you click on the situation, again, we have different fields that we need to populate. Firstly, we're going to start off with the company. And we also look at the company, bank. Now, if it happens that you have multiple bank accounts, you can also group those bank accounts. So if the bank belongs to the same company, you can group them and then you use the group bank as opposed to just selecting one account. And those will then be factored into in the banking position.
Antonio!
Keep me. Oh, okay. I was about to ask if you can mute yourself. So on this particular screen, we have the detail level. We can either use total, we can use forecast, we can use documents. I'm going to be showing the different components. And on my right-hand side of the screen, we can see all those that we need to be included. So when we click on the search, at the moment it's sitting on the daily and it's also on the total. So we can see that this is our bank balance. And then as the day go by, we can see if there's any change. So here we can see the first 150 that is that is going to be paid out. And as we also scroll to the right, we can also see the different movements that are going to be utilized. We can also click on the graph. For instance, if we click on the graph, we can see how the impact is going to be. So in this case, we started off with this balance. It's going to rise up and then it's going to remain constant. If you look at the other graph as well, we can see the variation. And again, if we move on to the week, and then we also choose focus type, we can also start seeing how the information is being spread. If we look at the user 1 and user 2 type, this is under the manual forecast, and you can see how it's all spread and how it also starts affecting the balances. The last option is your detailed or document. So if you look at that, I'm going to also choose the month here. The moment you put the month, it's then going to go on to the end date, which is the end of the year. And once you click on search, we can start seeing the activities for January, February, all the way to December. All the way to December. And again, we can also have different graphs that we can see on what's happening on the movements. And then what can also happen here is once you have generated that, you also have the ability to then have this information into Excel where you can analyze further. Okay, I'm just going to drag this. Okay, so you can have that information now sitting in your Excel based on the focus that you have, or on the view that you have selected. So we looked at the forecast. We also looked at the situation. Then when we go to the information, we can now start looking at, for instance, the list of the forecast that we have. That will be in form of a printout. Again, just drag it here. So again, it's almost similar to the view that we saw. And then the summary would be by the focus type. And then at the top, it will be all the detail. That information, we can also view the information on those open items that were included as part and parcel of the focus. So again, we can see all the figure that was coming up as part of the focus being represented here. And then again, the management focus, this is what I also used here as the manual entry. So it's quite important in that the flexibility that we are given when it comes to including those entries. Then when we go to that information can then be in turn be relayed onto your dashboards as well. Now, if we just turn the tables a bit and then we go under the administrative function, most of you have seen this this cache focus, but in most of the time it will be empty. It's because there will be no default bank account that you've put onto the parameters. And then here you can also see the movement of your cash flow up to the end. Okay, with that, I know it was a quick one. Most of you have seen it before, and most of you, I mean, some of you have not seen it before. With that, do we have any questions on what I've just presented?
No, I think it's great.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, the purpose was just to remind us that we have these tools in the system, because sometimes we will end up resorting to an external solution. But in its entirety, Sage X3 offers this particular solution. Any other questions, comments?
Yes. Can I ask?
Please
Right,
go ahead.
Alfred, yes. When are we going to get a forecasting tool for inventory, or there's one already?
See, in terms of that, it's quite difficult because each company will actually they handle it separately. But what reporting tool are you currently using? Because I believe there is something on the SCI side and on the SDA.
There's Sage SIA, what do you call that? Sage Inventory Advisor.
Or you're talking on the Sage Inventory Advisor.
Yes, but I'm saying one that may be an internal tool inside Sage.
Yeah. So what happens is because we already have that external one, there is no immediate answer to actually include it as part of the core, because we already have a tool. So where we try by all means to include some of the elements into the core is where we feel or we see that there is no other solution that is actually providing that.
Okay, and then workflow. Maybe I'm diverting a bit. Is there any improvements that's coming through on workflow?
I'm not too sure what improvements you want.
Yeah, workflow approvals. The ones that's currently that is on Sage is a bit too rigid in terms of what most organizations want. They want to be able to send documents back and forth, whereas you can only reject inside the current approval workflow.
Yeah, so I mean, those are the ones that come in standard. There is a provision for you to actually write your own workflows.
Yeah, because currently some of us are using third-party tools that are not Sage. So it would be good if Sage can come up with something. So
I
that
don't know if you have attended some boot camps on the workflow, which are provided by the expert.
I have, but there is not much on workflow.
All right.
In terms of our requirements, yeah.
Okay, for now, that's all we have. I don't anticipate anything in the near future. That's all we have at the moment. but thank you for the question. Any other question? If there is not any other question, I mean, this, as you could see, it was just a quick presentation. And it's also easy to just set up and get going, which is what we want in a solution, the usability. So if there is any other question, or I see a hand up, please go ahead.
Okay, how do we get access to the recording of the section?
All right. The recording is going to be shared with you from the support department. So normally they will upload it on a YouTube channel where it can be downloaded from.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question before we close the session? All right, looks like we do not have any other question. I would like to.
Sorry, Alfred, are you going to upload this on YouTube like you did the previous session?
Yes, it's going to be uploaded.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much for taking your time. I think I don't want to keep you if there's no any other question. Means I'm going to give you some of your time back for you to be productive. Once again, thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to meeting you in the next presentations that we have. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Cheers, Alfred. Thanks.